It was the summer of 2013 that my mother was immersed in this mysterious God. He was mysterious because just one person's experience somehow transformed our entire family. One day, I woke up finding myself sitting at the kitchen table. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the remnants of sleep, when the realization hit me. I wasn't alone. I was sitting next to my sister, and we were across from my mother. Turns out, we were taken out of bed to read this book. She handed me and my sister a fresh, identical new book. As I watched my mother flip through the pages, it settled on the Gospel of Luke. This was strange because for the first time, I saw my mother looking forward to reading a book. She talked about believing in this God, and even though I didn't know what it meant, I still followed along because I didn't want to interrupt her enthusiastic spirit. We listened to her read a chapter a day, and eventually on the fourth day, there was one story that stuck in my mind. The story went like this. So Simon, one of Jesus' disciples, went to Jesus and told him that his mother-in-law is sick with a high fever. Then Jesus left the synagogue to head to Simon's place. He stood beside Simon's mother-in-law and ordered the fever to go away, and it did. Then after the miracle, everybody brought their friends who were also sick with various kinds of diseases, and Jesus laid his hands on them and healed them all. This was an interesting story, but I was somewhat doubtful because I couldn't grasp a touch from him could cure anything. Surely it couldn't. I found this God pretty interesting until I realized what it did to my routine. There were morning Bible readings, bedtime Bible stories, prayers for meals, and even for snacks. As a 7-year-old, it disrupted my familiar routine. Once able to eat when I felt hungry, now required an extra step. My eagerness for the delicious food was now overcome by the eagerness for the prayer to be over. But to be fair, my mom was the type to pray for really long. Bedtime, which I had the freedom to do anything, has also turned to Bible stories and prayers. This became annoying because I am spending all my time on something I didn't actually understand. Eventually, this irritation was demonstrated in my attitude. For example, during Bible readings, my mind would be wandering around, thinking about stuff I'd rather be doing. During meal prayers, I would sigh to express my impatience. In bedtime Bible stories, I just slept through it. Then one day, I got a fever. My body was radiating heat that made every inch of my body uncomfortably warm. When my mother noticed the severity, I was already 40 degrees. I felt like I was trapped in a cocoon of heat, weak and hardly able to move. Eventually, breathing became an effort. Every swallow was followed by pain in the throat. Everything lost its vibrancy. I didn't want to eat, I didn't want to play any video games, and certainly couldn't fall asleep. My mother tried anything that could have possibly helped. I took a cold bath in an attempt to cool the fever, had Tylenol as a hopeful cure, and drank lots of hot water. Despite the efforts, I was still at 40 degrees. Tears welled up as every bit of hope dissipated. I was fearful, not knowing what to do. But it was also at this time my dad came back home from work. This reminded my mother of prayer, so my mother, father, and sister knelt beside my bed, and we formed a circle to pray. As our last resort, I chose to believe this was going to work. While still weeping, the prayer ended. I didn't notice much change, maybe because I was still touched by the unity and emotional support they gave me. It was only until my mother checked my temperature again. As I saw the temperature read 37 degrees, I started to understand what actually happened. I was back to normal. The room, once filled with tears and fear, transformed into a testimony of faith. The first thing I thought about was that story that stuck in my mind, the story of Jesus' healing of many. Coming to the realization that Jesus too has healed me, I believed in God. In the next couple of days, the routines that had felt burdensome before took on a new light. Meal prayers that once felt pointless and like an extra step now turned into moments of gratitude and connection. The morning Bible readings and bedtime stories once felt like a waste of time, now held its significance. It was the summer of 2013 that I was immersed in this mysterious God.